Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. Today we're actually going to be talking about iPad Pros and why they are a better investment, especially this year, compared to getting yourself a MacBook or MacBook Pro. Now, there are many reasons for this. Firstly, comparing iPads today to older ones such as the iPad 2 from way back, they are completely different. They are now no longer iPads, no longer tablets. I would personally call them computers, okay? Because of multiple factors. Firstly, if we look at the software, Apple has recently announced iPad OS, which is not necessarily a different OS compared to iOS that you have on their iPhones, but a reworked version of it just for the iPad, which has features such as the dock, like on MacBooks. It has multitasking and multiple windows. You can actually have 3 at a time, again, similar to a computer, and many other features such as widgets that you can put onto the home screen, although that is coming with iOS 14 on phones, but Apple's iPad had it first, and there's many other features to make very good use of the large screen and make it more computer-like. Apple even allows you to use mouses with their tablets now, which is up until recently only been an Android thing that is able to be done. Furthermore, on top of the software, you now have the hardware, which is now very comparable, if not better than most laptops out there, especially when you're considering Chromebooks, which are actually more often than not in the price range of second-hand or refurbished iPads, which I'll be telling you the prices of later. Firstly, processor and the graphics card or graphics part of the processor is actually more powerful than, for example, if you take Pentium Chromebooks that you can get for £400 to £500, they're very slow. Yes, they have 4 gigabytes of RAM, just as a lot of iPads do, but that RAM is completely mismanaged and much slower due to the fact that the Chromebook is made by someone else and is running Windows, so maybe HP running Windows, the optimization isn't there. Whereas with Apple, they've created iPad OS or iOS, and they have also created the hardware and they can match it perfectly. You also have a great screen on the iPad, which is again an IPS display with great color accuracy, often P3 depending on the model you choose, which is very color accurate. Whereas compared to a lot of Chromebooks or a lot of laptops, you end up with VN or TN displays, which aren't that great, especially off axis when you tilt the display. And in general, you are probably better off with an iPad for graphic work. Not only due to the display, but also the fact that you can use an Apple Pencil on the Pro models and some of the non-Pro models now. In terms of the hardware, there is also no fans in iPads, which is a great benefit. Now, some MacBooks, such as the Apple MacBook, did not have fans, but they are running Intel processors and therefore do get quite hot, and they thermal throttle and slow down your computer when you are putting a heavy workload on it. Whereas on the iPads, that is much more of a rare occurrence because of the fact that Apple designed themselves the Apple Silicon they put inside, so their A series of chips, such as the A14 or A12, A14 that is recently released. Battery life is also one of the best things when it comes to iPads because the standby time is amazing, and you will be very unlikely to not be able to get through a full day on the majority of the iPad models. Most often you will be able to do 2 full days as long as you've got either a refurbished or new iPad. If it comes to the second-hand market, you might have a few more issues. Now, just a disclaimer here, if you are looking for a laptop or computer replacement, I would be sure to go ahead and grab the 12.9-inch models of the iPad Pro, which are the biggest ones there. Very comparable to a 13.3-inch MacBook Air or Pro. You would barely notice the difference, as you can see here. Now, if you are not looking for a complete replacement and it would just be a side piece of technology that you may not use as frequently, the iPad, that Apple just calls the iPad, or the iPad Air would be viable replacements, being 10.5, 10.2 or 10.9 inches depending on the models you get. There are also smaller iPad Pros at 11 inches, which also are comparable models if you want any more power compared to the smaller iPads. One of the most integral points to what we are talking about now is actually the fact that Apple use their own silicon in their iPads and their phones. And this is a perfect match. Again, as I just repeated it earlier, is the fact that they make their hardware, they make their software, and not only do they make the hardware like other phone companies do, they put the battery in it, they make the motherboard, they also make their CPU and graphics, which is a crazy differentiator compared to pretty much every other manufacturer out there. So it means they can basically control everything. And yes, they at the moment are only doing this on the iPad and the phones, but this year they have just released their final Intel Mac, which is great news personally, I believe, because it means that they are going to move over to their silicon, which is ARM based, not x86 like Intel and AMD processors. And I believe that is going to be the future, because if you look at, for example, these benchmarks here, you can see the improvement, or actually the similarities between the two in terms of speed, but they run cooler because obviously Apple design everything themselves, and overall easier for Apple to manage because they are not going to outsource different components. I personally believe that Apple is then going to start to merge the two ecosystems. Not too much, but they definitely, because obviously they do want to make sure they have profits on the iPad side and the MacBook side. But I believe already, well, it's already shown, it's already been said that Apple will be able to let you run on your MacBooks once they are ARM based, or on your iMacs once they are ARM based, so Apple Silicon, iPad or iPhone apps. I'm not sure if Instagram or social media might be included in that or not, but basically that will be a possibility. And then there will most likely be backwards compatibility, and so there is the hope that on iPads you might be able to run a few more desktop apps as long as they are optimized for the hardware, which developers will most definitely do, being the size of the company that Apple is and the marketplace they do offer to developers. Now, I am kind of saying that Apple Silicon will be a great thing to invest in with having their laptops or computers, but then again, the prices are going to be stupid. They're going to be minimum £1,000 for a MacBook Air with Apple Silicon, which a lot of people can't afford, and personally I wouldn't put money into. So right now, if you're actually looking for something that is also quite future-proof and will work very well, especially as a student right now coming into the new academic year, an iPad Pro will be a perfect choice. Unless obviously you're doing some intense video editing or have a specific application that is only on computers such as Final Cut Pro X or Logic Pro X or Adobe Suite, anything like that that you can't get the full version of on iPads just yet. Such as in my case, I'm using Final Cut Pro and a bit of Logic Pro as well, and that is why I have a MacBook Pro 2015. If you guys like me to make a video on that, let me know, and I can explain the whole process of buying that and how it's been over the past 2 years of use. And I did get it secondhand, so I went through that whole process too. In terms of the specific iPad I would recommend the iPad Pro 12.9 inch second generation, mainly because the first generation doesn't really apply to everything I've said in this video because it's not very fast anymore and it has quite an old chip in it, being from 2015. The 2017 model, which is this second generation 12.9 inch iPad Pro, is very good still today. Has the same processor, well, not the same processor, it has the A10X in it, which is very similar to the processor in the iPhone 8 or the iPhone X, or iPhone 10. And it's very usable today, even for some graphic drawing or things that are a little bit more intense, and should last for a couple more years. And you are able to find it on Apple's website for around £480, £500, for example, the one we got here. I believe it was £480, I'll correct myself here if I am wrong. And that is the same price you might be paying, well, maybe not the same, but you could be getting a Chromebook for £400. It's going to last you a year or two, and the resale value will be horrific on it. And this is again why I believe Apple is a great item to get, not only because they are good products and they will last you, but also because their resale value is amazing. And for example, my MacBook I bought 2 years ago for £750 second hand on eBay should be able to last me another few years, and I believe right now, for example, I could sell it for £600-ish, so I've only lost £150 over 2 years. And even next year or the year after that, I'm sure I won't be losing much more unless Apple innovates something crazy and brings out something really cheap, which is highly unlikely. If you have a bit more money, the 12.9 inch third or fourth generation iPad Pros are great, although they are just very expensive and they are around that £1,000 mark. So at that point you could consider going for a laptop, although they will be going on sale, especially the 3rd generation, for around the £700 mark, which is actually great value considering what you are getting. You just have to also bear in mind that with these you will need to be investing in a keyboard case, which are great on all of these. If you go with a Logitech one, I would say you'll be perfectly fine because they're often backlit and they are powered through the iPad, so you don't need any Bluetooth through the small connectors, the smart connectors Apple call them. But then again, as I'm saying, as you go up and you go to the more expensive iPad Pros, Apple has keyboard cases that are upwards of £200 to £300. But for example, on the one here, 2nd generation one that I'm recommending to the majority of people, you can get a Logitech case for £100, and on eBay you can find it for around 60, or we could even go with Apple's one for a similar price, which is not too bad, adding to that price, and still a great value overall. So there you are. That's my video on why you should get an iPad Pro over a laptop in 2020 for students now going into the new academic year, and hopefully this will last you for a few years to come. So have a great day, and I will see you in the next one. Please go ahead, like, subscribe, and comment your opinions on this. Maybe you have a different point of view on this to me, or maybe you have some different recommendations that you would like to tell others about. Go ahead and put that in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.